Ah, Hi there, Dr. Rock here, and I'm with you for another Rock On. We are going to talk about why we do hard things. And actually, if you get my newsletter, and if you don't get my newsletter, please subscribe. Link down in the description. Um, that was my topic for the newsletter this week. So the Rock On is also the Rock On Live, which is maybe how I envision it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we do hard things, why we do challenging things in our life. Okay. And I'm going to structure this conversation in terms of a couple of my own personal stories or journeys and the way that I like to structure everything here at Rock Your Life, which is RAK, right? So roots, awareness, and kindness. All right. So we'll kind of go through all of those. I'll start by just saying, you know, I, much of my life, and I've shared this last week, I talked about how movement became a gift in my life. For so many years, I looked at it as a chore. Now it's a gift. Um, and And once I started exercising, working out regularly, I started going to this small gym I talked about, and it felt really good. It felt really good. I started noticing like how good I felt, and I started making friends at the gym I was going to, and that felt really good. And and those same friends, several of them, they did these obstacle course races, these Spartan obstacle course races. So this was when I joined in 2017, and I think I had heard of these, right? I had seen like some online, I'd seen it, but I never really thought of myself doing something like that. And reminder, I never really exercised consistently for much of my life, much of my adult life, but even when I was younger, I mean, I that's not true. I like used to ride my bike and do all sorts of things like that, um But yeah, I would say in my adult life, I never really consistently exercised until this point. And so, you know, in my head, I'm thinking, that's not something you can do. And then, people around me sort of saying, like people at the gym saying, no, you can do it, you can do it. Um, and we did it together as a team, right? So the first race I did was like this smaller stadium race with a team of people from the gym, and I loved it. I just loved it. It was scary. It was scary because I'd never done those things like climbing over walls. Um, I would get nervous just thinking about it when up until the time we actually did it, and then I ended up enjoying it so much more than I expected. And there were so many things I couldn't do. There were so many things I couldn't do. I couldn't do the monkey bars. I couldn't climb up the rope. I couldn't and And I didn't feel defeated by that. I suddenly had this understanding of all these different areas where I could potentially grow and get better, and what that would look like and what that would feel like, you know? Because there were things I could do that I thought, I never thought I could do this. I never thought I could climb over an 8-foot wall, like grab myself and pull myself over. Uh, so So then that started my quest to be an obstacle course racer. And the following spring I did another race with a smaller team, and that was a 10K race. And and again I felt like scared, and I didn't know what I was doing. Certainly much longer and much kind of more difficult terrain, um and I give myself credit. I tried my hardest to prepare, and certainly I was, like, pushing myself to do more runs and trail runs and things I hadn't done before. Um, And I would experience a lot of, like, discomfort. Like, I was getting pain in my knees and my feet, and, like, it was, it wasn't super enjoyable, certain aspects of it. I did the race, and I'd say, like, 2 miles in, uh, I got, like, the worst, most terrible, awful, horrendous cramps in my calf. It started in one calf. It's so bad, I thought I'd never experienced pain like that. I thought something had busted or broken. And I fell over on the course, and I screamed out loud. And then all these people, one thing is remarkable is all these people came up to me then. All these people that I didn't know, all these strangers came up to me. They started giving me mustard packets. These packets of mustard. That's how you stop a cramp. They started giving me pickle juice and electrolyte gummies and you name it, and massaging my calf, like really trying to help me up. And my team was there too. And I was mortified. I was like, what is this? I spent, several months preparing for this. I had done all these, and now what's going to happen? And I tell you, I finished that race. I still, it surprises me still because, well, the calf cramped up, but then the other one cramped up, like, half a mile later, and then it just kept happening, until I learned that, I need to slow my breathing down. I need to slow my breathing down and listen to my body, and I had to stop and start and stop and start and stop. And there were a couple people on my team who said, "You know what? We're just gonna go with you." And, small group of us, just they were with me every step of the way for all, like, 8 so this was, like, an additional 6 miles, which is like doing hard things, like carrying, like, heavy buckets and sandbags and going up things. And anyway, so this is why I'm surprised, but that took us a long time. I wanna say it took us, like, a 3.5 hours, maybe. So then, it's not anyway, it's not recording on YouTube. That's okay. I'll post it there later. Then, I left that race sort of thinking like, one, like, amazing that I was able to finish it, even when that terrible cramping happened. Amazing that I had a team that was there with me, right? And, like, what do I wanna do now? Should I call it quits? Because I tried and didn't really didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. And I said, "No." I said, "I'm going to keep doing this because I'm sure I'm not the first person this has happened to. And with continued sustained effort and practice, I can get better." So what I was really doing was employing a growth mindset. I'm gonna stop here and I'll just say that, this is um why we do hard things. Okay. And the first is like I I did it partly because I was joining a group of people doing this, right? So there's a power in doing things together. Not just for your motivation, but also for the amount of effort that you're able to put in and the perceived difficulty. There's a great study that showed, they had people climb up a hill. They had people do it in singles and in pairs. And those who did it in pairs, on average, they rated the difficulty of climbing that same exact hill as 20% less difficult, just because they had someone else climbing up with them. So that is the power of community and group. Okay. The other is that, I was looking at myself and asking myself, what am I capable of? What am I capable? That very first race, I remember how scared I was to sign up, to even think about doing it. And then that same feeling is also excitement. We can sort of recognize the same exact thing happening in our body is actually excitement. And so what I was excited about seeing what I was capable of. I'd never really challenged myself in that way, in a physical way like that in my life. I'd never done a race, I think, of any sort. Um, and this I was 37. So anyway, that goes back to your roots. That goes back to sort of this aspirational self-identity that you hold for yourself. Who is it that I want to be? And in those moments where, you do a race and it doesn't go very well, or you do a race and it does go well, or whatever, it's just you can reflect on that. Like, who am I becoming? Who's the person that did something like this today? And how can I use that to then fuel all the other things that I do, the next race or the so understanding that your roots, I would say your why, it's also like why you're doing these things. Why did I tell you I started cramping in the next race. The next race was in September that year. So like 4 or 5 months later, smaller group said we're going to do even longer race. That was probably in retrospect, a mistake. Um, and it also felt good to go on this trip with a group from my gym and to really push myself for this, what was probably like a 20K. And I certainly made it much further, right? So it was about, I don't yeah, it was about, what is 20K? 10 miles? Less than that. Um, 5K is 3 miles, so 12 miles. Okay, yeah, it was about 12 miles, right? So I probably made it like 8 or 9 miles in before the cramps started, and they were just as bad as the first time. And here I was thinking, "What?" I prepared even harder. I ran even more. I and I finished. I was like, "At least I've been through this before." So I didn't belabor it. I was like, "Okay, I know what to do. Gotta slow my breath down. Gotta take some starts and stops." And my team, they stuck around. They made sure that I finished. So there I was, again, asking myself, do I want to keep doing this? Yes, I want to keep doing this. I won't belabor it, but each time, because it has happened just a few more times, the cramping has happened. One, two, at least two more races has happened. I'm not gonna go through each one, but each time it's gotten better. There was one race I actually didn't even do because I cramped up like the week up to it in preparing because I was like, I don't want to cramp up during the race. I'm going to prepare so hard that you know, the race will seem easy. That was my mindset. This was several years ago. And in doing that, I just suffered terrible cramps during my like all out push, which was, again, maybe not the best idea, but this is the learning that occurs. So the week before I was sort of like pushing myself to do these really hard trail runs. And on one of them, on the back half, just I was by myself and then I fell fell to the ground in the middle of this trail. I mean, I knew what was happening, so I let it pass. Um, it was interesting because every time I had cramped up before that was on course with like all these strangers who would, and every time it's happened, all these people come up and just do whatever they can to help to make sure you're okay. And so here I was by myself training. So I remember I didn't end up doing that race that year. I think this was in 2019. And so I said, like, how can I do the race? Like I could hardly walk for a couple days. And the race was like a couple days after that. So but then I signed my kids up. I remember, so I remember taking my family that weekend, and instead of me doing the race, I signed my kids up for the kids race. And so somebody's gonna do it. And there was, I was like, "Oh, this is really important to you. For some reason, like, this is really important to you, so you gotta figure this out." Of course, the pandemic came, and I stopped doing these races. Well, they got canceled, right? And interestingly, right? I mean, gyms got closed and everything. I started running a lot more than I ever had. And, again, I'm not a huge runner. Um, Never was, but I started running on trails and hiking more, um, and started getting like kind of more in touch and connected with my body and my body mechanics. So remember I mentioned I would get all this knee pain and foot pain when I was training. I started realizing that, there was like weakness in my hip and imbalances, and I won't get into all that, but I went down all these rabbit holes, but it, ultimately, like, discovered, oh, there are certain things I can do on a regular basis, certain exercises I can do to actually restore that, and then running became so much more enjoyable without pain, and then it really allowed me to, like, run more, and a couple years ago, actually, like, a friend of mine and I signed up for just a trail race. Like, and I'd never done that before, but we did a 10K trail race, which was a pretty, um, that I did not cramp up during that race. That I'm very proud of that, huh? And so anyway, back to these Spartan races, back to maybe how this might be helpful for you. One thing I'll point out is that there's this learning from adversity, right? So each time I finished a race, or cramping happened again, I could sort of take stock, like, okay, why, what happened? Maybe why did that happen? Oh, you were training too hard the week before. Like, you really need a longer runway, and more accurately, like, you just need to create, you just need to be the person that sort of regularly does these things, and then your body will adjust over time, right? That's sort of what I've learned, or I'm learning, and then learning all about my body and how to exercise and move it in a way that felt better, that didn't hurt. Um, Learned a lot about footwear and started wearing minimalist shoes for running, and barefoot shoes, zero drop shoes, whatever you want to call them. Well, there are some differences, I guess, but I all these things I learned because I had this desire to get better, and I had this interest in doing better and becoming better. And so this is really the awareness piece of life's challenges, and the value and the growth that comes from adversity. So I ask all of you, if you're watching, like, just reflect on a past challenge. It could have been something recent, could be something small too. Um, but think about what you learned from that, what it taught you, what it taught you about yourself, what it taught you about the world, any skills you might have developed as a result of it. Um, the first time you get a flat tire, if you've never changed a tire before and you're going to change the tire, you may have learned how to do it, but you've never done it before, but then you change it. Um, then the next time it becomes easier. You're like, oh, I kind of know what to do. I got to got to pull the jack out. So yeah. Um, Challenges can make you, and then imagine if you're in a situation where you're like driving with someone and, they don't get cell phone signal. They're in some remote area where they don't get cell phone signal and the tire goes flat. You're in some camping trip with another family, let's say, and everyone's like, I don't know how to change a tire. I don't know how to change a tire. You're like, well, this has happened to me. I know how to change the tire. So that's like you pocket that growth. Um, okay, so just reflect on that. Last thing I'll talk about is kindness. And the importance I've talked about the importance of support and community in overcoming challenges. Um, kindness is both what those around you offer, but then also what you give to yourself, especially during tough times. And challenges, I've been speaking about these races and challenges are sometimes things we choose. I choose to sign up for this race. And but really, like, life is the complexity of life, that's its own challenge. And all the things that get presented to us and all the things that come up and happen to us, that's the challenge. And so there's always going to be hard things that come up in our life, you know? And so these same skills, these same ideas, asking yourself, who's the type of person I want to be? Who's the type of person? How do I want to show up in this situation? And then understanding what growth might come, you know? I think about this a lot with my wife now, who, as I've written about, as I've talked about in my podcast, um, last August was diagnosed with breast cancer. And and flash forward, many months later, uh, it's in remission. She's had surgery and treatments, um, and we're confident that it's not going to come back. And that has been, arguably one of the hardest things that myself, my family have had to go through. And with all the ups and downs and roller coaster of emotions, and I think about all the good things that have come out of that, of all the connection that I have experienced with others, with my wife, with my kids, with my family, with friends, um, with, you know, with as difficult as a situation as that is, how much growth I feel has come out of that in so many ways. And this is, the expression that universe or life doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. And you can choose to look at anything as an opportunity. And it can be hard, I know, especially when you're experiencing negative emotions. Oh, trust me, I know. Especially when you have fear and anger, our view gets so narrowed and we can't see beyond those things. How could this be good? Hmm. And then when we look at situations with curiosity, first acknowledging, this is where the self-compassion, the kindness, first acknowledging, wow, this is really hard. This is I'm really disappointed. I'm really sad. I'm really upset. I didn't want things to turn out this way. And there are many people who maybe experience this, the shared humanity. And and then you talk to yourself in the way you talk to a friend. You know, you are doing the best you can. You're going to figure this out. There's a lot of opportunity for growth here. That is what I would say to a friend. That is what I would say to a friend. I would remind my friend, just like I tell it myself, and I remind you to remind yourself that in these moments in life, in all the challenges that we encounter, ask yourself, what can I learn? What can I get out of this? Okay. Um, so that is why we do hard things, because they feel good. I should say they don't necessarily feel good when you're just starting. One thing I've learned is I could go I don't know if I'd change things if I go back in time, but I've learned that especially when you're starting movement, like it should feel good. And if it doesn't feel good, use that as your cue to figure out what are opportunities. What are opportunities to make it feel good? Like how could I learn more about what's going on behind my pain and maybe ways to address that? Or how can I move in other ways that don't cause pain? And that actually might feel good, might feel pleasurable. So, um, and then there comes a time and a place where you build up that confidence and your skills where you say, you know what? I may not be ready for that race, but I'm going to sign up. I'm just going to do it because it feels good. That feels good. And then preparing for that. And then the person that you become because you prepare for that, and because you go through that experience, that all feels good too. All right. All right. I appreciate all of you. If you have interest, I run health education groups. You can find out more at my website, rockyourlife.com. We have a men's peak tribe. Yes, our groups are called tribes. The men's peak tribe is starting in May. So there is um, an opportunity there for you. But you don't have to sign up by the time it starts. And if you're watching this sometime in the future, you can still sign up. These are, well, maybe, unless it's full. But assuming if there's a spot, you can certainly sign up. All right. And check out my newsletter, Rock On. Check out my podcast, The Health Feast. Until next time, live well and rock on. Boom. I'll see you all back here next time.